Happy Saturday. Let's talk about some Clemson football. Um, if you just watched, Clemson just fell to 1-3 and a home loss to Syracuse. That marks, I believe, three straight home losses. There's all sorts of stats going around. It's the worst start since 2004, I think, at Clemson. Certainly the worst start in Dabo Swinney's tenure. Um, and I just wanted to talk about it. This will be different than the last video I did with film. I might do some film with Georgia Tech in this tape here throughout this next 2 weeks with Clemson having a bye week. But I think we're at a point where I can share some deeper thoughts and feelings about where this program's at. And here's the thesis, and I've written it all down. It might be easier for you to look at. When Dabo Swinney was hired, it was as an interim head coach, and I think it wouldn't be a bad time for him to consider himself an interim head coach now. And I don't mean that in a threatening way, as if he's about to be fired. But what we've seen is with the Bowdens, we saw it with Steve Spurrier, we saw it with Jimbo Fisher, we're seeing it with Mike Gundy at Oklahoma State, that if the road gets too hard, it just keeps going. And as much as I agree with Dabo Swinney about a lot of his talking points, not about portal or money, but about culture and how to treat people and things like that, I don't think the same talking points that got him here are the same ones that are going to get him out. But I could be wrong. But I think embracing sort of an interim head coach mindset would be the move, and we'll see as we go if that makes some sense. I want to start with the largest problems, how we've gotten here through 4 weeks. The big thing, the big percentage points. I always believe you should take care of the big percentage points first. The strengths of this team have been the largest weaknesses. The offensive line returned a ton. The defensive line returned a ton, and including supposedly two first-round top 10 draft picks, and the quarterback, who was projected to be a first-round quarterback. And to start there, I think the trenches are the most important thing to address, but let's also talk about Cade Klubnik so far. More than anything, he's hesitant. He seems shell-shocked. He seems like the same player he was 2 years ago, where he would make very high-level NFL plays, but he was capable of mistakes and hesitancy everywhere. Unfortunately, this is two five-star quarterbacks in a row that Clemson has missed on. I don't imagine this is a trend. I think it's just tough luck after hitting on two quarterbacks prior that were exceptional. Clemson is getting off to slow starts in all their games, over and over and over again. It's a longer trend. They've struggled out of bye weeks the last few years, and they've struggled with openers tremendously the last few years. There's something a little bit wonky about their ability to get up and get going in a game. I don't know how to put my finger on it, but this year slow starts have crushed them for sure. LSU, they were better, but the last three games have been tremendously bad. On a similar note, all of the NFL projected guys, except for Avion Terrell, have been objectively bad. Nick Saban used to call it rat poison. Dabo Swinney's talked about it. The returning leaders and NFL quality players have been anything but. And that's hard to overcome. It's also hard to understand how something like that can happen. This is a small one, but I don't think LSU, Georgia Tech, and Syracuse are that bad. And I think the shock and awe of playing teams that are good when you're playing really poor has shocked this program a little bit. Last year they got walloped by Georgia, but then they played a really bad App State and a really bad NC State team and allowed them to recover their footing. Georgia Tech and Syracuse have not allowed that, and that's credit to those programs. And it's truly identified where Clemson is at in the pecking order, versus where last year I think they could get away with it for a little bit longer. And just to clarify, there's a lot of talk, a lot of takes out there on the internet, and I guess I should have said my disclaimer. I'm an alum, I'm an English teacher, I'm a writer. I'm not a football coach, never been a coach. You can watch my film videos, but Clemson is 7th in the country according to 247 as far as talent. They're talented everywhere. Even if that number's off, they're still underperforming. And this has been building. Anyone telling you otherwise is wrong. There's been the calling of the demise. There's been the naysayers saying Clemson will be fine once they get a quarterback again, da-da-da-da-da. But objectively, under West Goodwin, Clemson's defense got worse. And since the internal hires and really leaving of Jeff Scott and Tony Elliott, Clemson's offense has not been elite. It's not complicated. Last year was the closest they got again. They've had challenges. They get stuck in ruts. And even last year, when they sort of approached being elite again, they had tremendous challenges. And to me, when you have this much talent, and you're still struggling to this degree, I think it has to be the adults in the room. That's just my take. I think we're really quick to blame the 18 to 22-year-olds. I think we have some adults in the room problems, and I'll get to those as we go. A little bit more on that. There's some physicality and speed problems, but the players, more than anything, don't seem to know where to go on defense, and they don't know who to block. And that seems to be an adults in the room problem. There is a lack of physicality, particularly from some of those NFL guys, but there seems to be an adult in the room issue to me. And then finally, I just want to talk about the common phrases that we've seen so far. We've seen a lot of 10 of 11 players are making the play, not all 11. But, we responded. We fought to the end. A lot of yards. But the name of the game is points. Dabo Swinney just said this following the game. And just can't play complimentary football. All these things are true. I do think they're a little bit talking pointy. And it's a temptation I think the staff and the players are under. And it's one that makes sense. And it's a good mentality to have, that they're really close to turning. I think I'm going to explain why I don't think that's the case. But I can see why they hold on to that belief. And in some ways, they're not wrong. They had a lot of yards today. They had a lot of yards against Georgia Tech. Offense looked pretty decent against Troy. And the defense looked quite good against LSU for a lot of the game. So in many ways, you can imagine, gosh, if they could just put it together. But when it's been years, especially this year, but when it's been years of can they put it together, I've run out of excuses for these phrases, although I agree with them, and I think internally they make sense. So that's how we got here. Part 2 of this video is going to be about in the micro. What can Dabo Swinney do right now? And these are going to be more dramatic. To start, I think privately, because Dabo Swinney seems to run this way, but you can do it publicly. The rumors from a few years ago, when the offense was truly struggling, they were 4-4, is that Dabo Swinney basically called everyone out and said, you're competing for your job and your playing time, players and coaches. I think we're there. 1-3 start, the worst start of his tenure. I think we're there. I think we're in interim head coach land. So it's a reset at practice. It's more intense. It's more accountable. Here's the tricky part of that. If you listen to any of the players following the loss today, or Dabo Swinney today, there's a lot of talk of love for each other, all the work they've put in. The hardest part of this will not be ramping up the intensity. It'll be cutting through the pain of all of the hard work, all of the expectations, all of the love, all of the disappointment. This is going to be really challenging because when you're an interim, you get to come in clean slate. When you're part of the reason you got there and then you try and cut it, it requires a lot of gumption. It's going to be really hard. But I think it's early enough to do a full self-scout. They normally wait to the end of the year. And I would agree with that. You want the full sample size. They're 1-3. And they say they're close, but both units are not top 75 in the country in yards. That's not even close. It's not even close. So I just think with a bye week, you've got the time to do a full self-scout. And here's what I would be doing in the self-scout. Some things I've written down here. I would restructure the offense potentially. They struggle tremendously with pulling guards, tackles, and motioning tight ends. They bring hats into the box. They don't know who to identify. Even on pitches plays, the fourth down conversion where Klubnik looked like he could have pitched it but didn't today, that was still a first down if the left guard pulled where he was supposed to go. But he didn't. They can't do this. It seems like a complete mental holdup. And I think Garrett Riley has to be in charge of this. I think as soon as Dabo Swinney takes over the offense, you might as well just say goodbye to Garrett Riley. And if that's the plan, sure. But if Garrett Riley's going to actually get a chance to coach for his job, it's got to be Garrett Riley. And if I was in Garrett Riley's shoes, I would say, whoa, we're 1-3. My quarterback's a mess. We can't run the ball all the time, but we can sometimes. We're bigger than most teams will play for the rest of the year. Let's run them over. It's exactly what they did with DJU a few years ago. That's the reason they sort of saved a season after being 4-4. So in that sense, they can play bully ball. They can attack with screens when teams are trying to get downhill and hit them with double moves. Clemson right now is incapable of running a double move. I don't know why. Teams are slashing down on slants. They're trying to cover their out routes. Everything is so physical. One pump fake and a double move is going to crush teams. I don't know why they're so hesitant to do these, but it can be a very simple 1-2 punch. Say, we're going to run it 30-plus times. See if you can stop us. Just say, this is who we are now. Which is insane considering the receiving core they have. But then if it doesn't work, or if they're starting to really press to stop you, I mean, Wesco and Moore and Williams and Brown, like they're just going to beat you over the top. um, at least in the short term, to get an identity. Doing the same thing that they've been doing just to get yards, but to look uncomfortable, to look anxious, it doesn't make sense. I think they need to zag. I think they've zigged for long enough under Garrett Riley's same scheme. And I think as someone who golfs, if you are struggling doing something, trying to swim up the wave is much harder than just identifying, whoa, what's going to get me to steady myself back into the round? And dear God, do they need to steady themselves back into their season? I think running the ball and dumbing it down is the way to do that. I could be wrong, but that's the hunch I get. This was going to be controversial. Me and Clemson fans want to start the backup quarterback, Chris Vizina. I would consider it. I would have it a legit, straight-up competition. 2 is shell-shocked. He's making incorrect reads constantly. He's overthrowing passes. He's making elite-level throws from time to time for sure. He's a talented runner. He's going to make crazy high-end plays. He already has this year. His highlight plays are awesome this year. But it's a struggle. It's a struggle. He was responsible for many of the drives failing today on his own. I would consider it. And Vizina is known to be a pretty physical runner. Part of this bully ball would make some sense for Vizina to be the guy. I think we're at the point where we can have that conversation. I don't think this will happen, to be clear. I don't think Dabo Swinney's going to abandon Klubnik. And it's heartbreaking to imagine for a guy that was supposed to be, a first-round draft pick to not be, to not actually keep his spot. But I think we're there through 4 games, I do. And then I think you dumb it down as far as what the rest of the season is for. It's about pride and execution. Who shows up and cares? So far, these are the guys who have shown up and cared with ease. Jaheim Lawson has been incredible. Great. He should be a starter. Will Helt, incredible. Stevilen Green has been great. Tyler Brown has been great. I think Thurman has been pretty strong. Bryant Wesco has been excellent outside of some drops. He's been excellent. Adam Randall, a couple fumbles, but has been excellent. And Avion Terrell. Those guys have been excellent. There's been other players who have been fine, but that is a group of players that have earned more playing time, in my opinion. Those guys need snaps. They are hungry. They're dominating possessions. Those guys need to play more. On the other end, I would take some snaps away from these guys until they earn them back. I would start with Peter Woods. Is pseudo non-existent, and forgot to add his name, but this guy is right there with him. I don't know what the deal is here with these two. I don't know if it's rat poison. They haven't been horrific, but they've been absent at times. And to be top 10 draft picks, they're violently absent. I don't have a great answer for it. They're getting blown off the ball. Strozer at corner has been a tremendous struggle. Denhoff has been a struggle. He plays really hard, to his credit, but he's been a tremendous struggle. Klubnik, we've already talked about. Shelton Lewis, really tough. Colin Sadler and Harris Sewell, supposed to be the future of Clemson's offensive line. It's been ugly. It's been really ugly for those two. Lincecum at center. It's been pretty ugly. Jaden Lucas at corner. Previous 5-star guy. It's never quite panned. And it's unfortunate. It just hasn't. Tristan Lee at left tackle. A mid-round NFL guy. Just hasn't been good. It's not that complicated. And then TJ Moore. He's a little more curious to me. Doesn't seem to have as much shift as I thought he did. And he's just not winning 50-50 balls at the rate he did last year. I also think he's open pretty often, and he's just not getting the ball. But, yeah, I wouldn't be opposed to seeing more Tristan Smith. But we'll see. I think TJ Moore could be elite. It's just not working right now. Final thing. Clemson's rotating at a rate I've never seen. They've been asked about this, and the coaches have been a little coy about it. If we're resetting things here, which they should do, they should reset, they need to stop rotating as much. If Jaheim Lawson's going out and winning snaps over and over again, keep him on the field. If he's outperforming TJ Parker, keep him on the field. They're rotating so much. They're bringing in backups and in crucial spots, and they're rotating at a rate that I can't quite recall. They've always been a rotation-heavy program, but it's much more. I think they need to stop. They're so out of rhythm. They're so anxious. This makes no sense to me. So that's what they can do this year. I think those are all super tangible. And I think hopefully trusting in Tom Allen, the defense playing downhill and rewarding the guys who are really playing hard. I think the defense will continue to be improving from where they were last year, and it's hard to ask for much more, to be honest. In the macro, this is going to get spicy. Anyone involved in offensive line and defensive line play need immediate improvement, or they should be removed from the program. That includes Nick Eason, Rumpf, and Matt Luke. Those guys are recruiting at a nice level. They seem like great culture fits. All hires that I thought made sense at the time. The trench play is the difference maker for Clemson right now. Klubnik is making things worse, but Clemson's trench play is very poor. The defensive line is absent. The offensive line is poor. It's not that complicated. Those are the groups right now that are causing Clemson the most problems. Last year, Klubnik just played around it, and the defensive line could pass rush, but they couldn't defend the run. And right now, they're not getting after the passer, and they're also kind of absent in the run game against Syracuse today. They didn't get a push against Georgia Tech. They're not elite. It's not that complicated. The defensive line is not elite. More in the macro. If you can do better than Riley in the offseason, I think you should. This will be 3 years. It's always been, why can't they put it together more often? I like his play calls. When you go back and watch the tape, there's dudes open. I don't know if it's too complicated. I just don't know if Kate Klubnik's not the guy. I also know he's the quarterback's coach, and his quarterback is in shambles right now. So I think either way, if you can do better, you should. You can also get rid of Kyle Richardson as co-offensive coordinator. He's been there for several years. I don't know what he's offering. Unless you believe you need him for recruiting, I don't know why you need Kyle Richardson. Here's some more. Do you need CJ Spiller? Do you need Taj Boyd? Do you need Tyler Grisham? Do you need DeAndre McDaniel? Do you need Ben Bowler? That's a lot of Clemson players that are coaches or staff. I think it's good that you have some for culture. I do. There's a lot of guys on that sideline with orange polos, and I don't know if they're all necessary. I think they could use a re-uptake of some non-Clemson blood. And I could be wrong about that. But they need something. I'm not sure. I'm not sure that's the answer. But having the same adults in the room with this consistent amount of struggle doesn't make a ton of sense to me. Other ones, these are going to make Dabo Swinney mad. Embrace the portal slightly more. Will Helt has been sorry for the typo. Will Helt has been maybe the best player when it comes to defense. Could you imagine if there were 5 to 7 more of Will Helts? Now you're going to miss on some, but it would be a big deal if there were 2 offensive linemen and another defensive lineman that were of Will Helt's quality. I can almost guarantee that Clemson would have one more win right now if they had 2 more players like that. I think the adults in the room are the problem. But man, they could use some new blood, and they could use some guys that are really fighting after it. Will Helt's been that. They need more Will Helts. They need to pour more money into NIL. I know Dabo hates that, but it's the name of the game. They need to continue to do it differently and market that they do it differently. That's smart. They need to be high school oriented. I think that's smart. It's going to bode well for Clemson in the long run, I think. But they've got to still be they got to be slightly more competitive in the NIL game. All right, here's the last 2. And these are a little bit more philosophy-based. There's more hype videos. There's more vlogging. There's more lights in the stadium. There's more of that than ever when you go to a Clemson game. And I wonder if that's bad for this program. It used to be no social media. It used to be, I don't know. There used to be a different energy to it. And I think they need an edge. And I would encourage a sort of Saban-esque approach, which is we hire elite coordinators who are going to use us as a launching pad to be head coaches. And I know that's very antithetical to what Swinney has done, but his coaching tree is not good. And I think it might be time for a change in that regard. I don't know if they can cut out the hype videos and all these things, but it would be cool if this program they need a marked turn right now. I think some visual evolution. And to give Dabo credit, I think he's tried. He's hired Garrett Riley and he hired Matt Luke, and now he's hired Tom Allen. I think those are pretty big hires for him. And he took in some transfers. I think he's trying to evolve, so I give him some credit. I just think it needs to continue. I think he's got to keep turning corners. He cannot regress. And to me, that's why the interim head coach mindset makes sense. I think if he doesn't, my hunch is they might regain footing, but they're going to start living in that 7-5, 8-4 land. And that's just based off history. We've seen that from other coaches. Maybe he'll prove us wrong. He's done that a bunch in his career. Earlier this week, he said now he actually knows what he's doing as a head coach, where he used to not know at all. And I love that as a mentality, but the truth is that his way of climbing the mountain, it may still work, but it's not working right now. And so I don't want to oversay that this plan of his, the way he wants to build culture, isn't working. There are a lot of takes out there that the Dabo Swinney of old isn't going to work. I don't know if that's true. I know that it's 1-3 right now, and I think that's all that matters. And these things in the macro, I think, are reasons that the team is starting 1-3. I don't know how a team brings back this much talent and then proceeds to start 1-3, and I don't know how they've managed to do that several years in a row, where it's been a struggle. Complementary football, position groups regressing. To me, that has to be the adults in the room, and I think Dabo Swinney ultimately is in charge more of the adults in the room than he is the players in the room. Because I think the players in the room love the program. I think they want to play hard. I think they want to win national championships. That all makes sense to me. He's not losing locker rooms. Despite all of the troubles the last few years, he's not losing locker rooms. And they've had great success the last few years, too. I think he needs different adults in the room. And I think there are still consequences play-wise from some really bad hiring a few years ago. I think he's tried to rework that. I think Tom Allen might work out. And I thought Garrett Riley would work out, but it hasn't. Hasn't yet, at least. I think he just needs to keep evolving, and I think an interim head coach mentality allows him to do that. My fear is that if he doesn't, this thing will putter out like we saw with Jimbo Fisher or Steve Spurrier or anyone else, and things will get kind of toxic. We're seeing it right now with Mike Gundy. And then you might see him coaching at Alabama or somewhere else. And if that's what he wants to do, that's fine. Because I think he's earned the right to handle this the way he wants to handle it after the success he's brought Clemson. We know that there's a sort of scorched earth Dabo behind the scenes from a few years ago, and I think he's got to show up earlier this year than he's shown up in other years. But we'll see. We've never seen Dabo Swinney in this position. 4-4 was different than this. Different. Right now, both sides of the ball have a chance to be great, and they also have a chance to be awful. And I can't recall that in a long, long time at Clemson. So I think it's pretty gut check time. And these are just some ideas. I don't know whether it's going to work out for Dabo Swinney or not. I think the writing on the wall and what we've seen from history is that this will end poorly. What I think is cool about Dabo Swinney is that if he has been different for a long time, if he chooses to be different again and can show that and act that, I don't think he has to go down the same path that the Jimbo Fishers went on. But we'll see. I think it requires him admitting that things aren't working and calling out those around him, publicly or privately. I think it will require that. And I think it's going to be really hard after all the expectations for this year. But we'll see. If I make a tape video, I'll let you know. Appreciate you.